what he gets is smiles and nods and
Sure.
hey, thank you very much.
Right.
Appreciate
Right.
that guidance. And then they go away and they have the real conversations and they figure things out on their own. And so
But you look at, in today's workforce, so you've got someone who's not telling you the truth, right? They're just smiling and nodding,
right.
whatever you say. Yeah, whatever you say. And the people that really want to do something different, they're probably not going to stick around because why would they? So, people who really trust themselves and have a wealth of experience and knowledge and want to do something different, they're going to go either create their own opportunities or go someplace else. So then you've got an organization of people that all that's left are the head nodders and the people who are only going to do what they have to do to stay off the radar. Yep. And you can't be competitive as an organization in today's world that way.
Welcome to the Leadership Disrupted podcast. Those of you who come to this podcast week after week know that I don't take myself too seriously, but I do take you seriously, the listeners and the viewers. It's a unique person who wants to spend an hour each week focused on leadership development. We talk, we debate, we ramble, and occasionally we offer unique ideas and hopefully some useful insight. So for all of you who I like to call leadership nerds out there, please know I do see you and I do appreciate you. And today we are talking to Kimberly Davis. For more than 20 years, Kimberly has been helping thousands of emerging leaders transform into strategic difference makers who drive results while leveraging their true, authentic selves. She's the author of Brave Leadership, which we'll talk about more. And I know we often talk about the importance of being brave and getting in the arena. But one of the things that makes brave leadership different is it demystifies how to be brave and how to do brave, even when you don't feel brave. So brave leadership, I think of as an essential guide for leaders in today's ever-shifting world. So Kim, there is so much to talk about here, but before we unpack brave leadership and all things associated with that, can we unpack you and your story and just how you got to where you are today and anything else that you want to share with us?
Yeah, absolutely, Dan. So it's funny because my background is very unusual for what I do. I've taken a very circuitous path to get to where I am. And I also think it's that circuitous path that gives me a different perspective that's been valuable for people. And so, one of the things that people say, well, tell me about your background. And when I say, well, I started off in the theater, a million years ago and did theater for almost 20 years. And then ended up having my own events business and that moved into doing company meetings for one of Bill Gates's big companies called Corbis. And so I did all these global company meetings, which led to me working with executives on their messaging, which led me to building out meetings that would grab people's attention and help them understand why they cared about their work and leave them inspired and uplifted. And then, that moved into being a hired gun for a big leadership engagement firm. And so all of that led me to being in the classroom in Philadelphia. I don't want to say how long ago, 2008. I think it's 2008. Please don't do the math. And I had mentioned my acting background in the classroom as I was introducing myself, and the guy that was it was for Johnson & Johnson, and the guy that was head of learning and development for all of Johnson & Johnson sat in on my session. He really liked my work. He heard me talk about my unique theater background, and he said, I've always wanted to do a leadership program that used theater tools. And I said, well, I've been noodling something over for years and haven't had an opportunity to develop it. So I got permission to work directly with the client, and I developed this full day experiential leadership program that used theater tools in a way that theater tools hadn't been used in the past. Because a lot of times when you use theater tools, it's all very performative. It's, how do you have presence, and how do you, but I took the theater tools that we use in the craft of acting and apply them to business. And the tool that I use the most is one that's called the super objective. And the super objective was actually coined by a theater master in the turn of the century who used to run the Moscow Arts Theater, and he was a director and an actor named Konstantin Stanislavski. And he essentially wanted to understand, what was it about actors that could command a presence that allowed them to be honest and powerful in the spotlight when the stakes felt high? Because actors are always in the spotlight when the stakes feel high. And as human beings, what do we do when we're in a situation when the stakes feel high? We want to prove ourselves, we push, we make ourselves smaller, we do all of these different things. So he had a tool called the super objective that he used to help actors show up powerfully on the stage. But it was from an authentic purpose perspective. Right.
Now, when you say authentic in this language, are you talking about authentic in terms of the character? Like what is the super objective of the character in this moment?
The super objective of the character. So if the character is really clear on their driving need, this is what drives me as a human being, as a character, right? This is what I want more than anything in the world. And they learn how to focus their attention on that and take specific action to achieve that driving need, right? So that's essentially purpose, what drives them, right?
Yes.
Then what that does is it harnesses your mind, it harnesses your thinking. The super objective is essentially a neurological redirect tool, but that's right. So what it does is it harnesses your mind so your amygdala doesn't pick up on the fact that you should be nervous, doesn't pick up on the fact that you want to prove yourself and you might fail, and what are people thinking, and they might judge me, and they might kick me off the island, and all of the things that we do as human beings when we're in a high stakes situation. And it allows you to take powerful, consistent, constructive, responsible action in every situation you face that's in alignment with your strengths and your values. Now, that said, Konstantin Stanislavski didn't do all of that. I took this tool that is essentially a purpose tool for actors and applied it to the business space. And because, of course, actors, a character on the stage doesn't care if their actions are constructive or destructive, right? A character on the stage
I'm going to get myself in trouble because sometimes I connect dots in inappropriate ways or incorrect ways. But are you saying that in many ways your method, it's we hear about method acting or the Stanislavski method. Is this method leading where you connect with your inner drive?
Well, yes and no. Okay. What I think this does more than anything is it helps people get out of their own way. So so they're not flooded with cortisol, which is going to make them do all the crazy things that we do when we're uncomfortable, right? It helps people get out of their own way and harnesses their attention to think strategically about how they're going to connect and communicate and show up in a space. Because most of us in life, Dan, we are simply reacting reacting to the world around us or in survival mode. We're not thinking about what is the impact I want to have right now in this situation. And what the super objective does is it harnesses your attention so you could say, what's the impact I want to have right now in this situation? So you can know, did I do it or did I not? Which allows you to course correct if you don't have the impact that you want to have.
So then the super objective is different than like Simon Sinek talks about your big why. That's more of your like Uber meta driver. You're really talking about moment by moment, situation by situation,
So
engagement by engagement.
yes and no. So your
Okay.
super objective is your big why. So
Okay.
it's essentially your big why. Simon looks at it a little bit differently than I do, but there's definitely some congruence there in the way he looks at the world. But your super objective is, so for example, my super objective is to connect people to the best of who they are. That's what drives me. That's why I do what I do. Why I get up in the morning and write every day. That's why we're having this conversation. You know, that's what drives me. Now, as I look at the different situations in my life, so right now, in this conversation with you, what's the impact I want to have on you? I want to connect you to the best of who you are. How do I do that? What actions do I take? What actions do I take to connect you that are listening to us to the best of who you are? So it harnesses my attention. So I'm focused on having an impact on you. What action can I take? It's that focus of attention on action that changes it.
Yeah.
Right. And so where I changed it is a super objective is always framed in constructive, actionable language. So it forces leaders to show up constructively and responsibly in the situations they face. So, for example, to drive results, great thing to do, but there's a lot of people that drive results in very destructive ways. So if you were going to shift that into super objective language, how might you say that? Well, you could soften the verb drive. I want to collaboratively drive results, right? You could do that. But there's a lot. I would probably coach you to try a different verb that's going to serve you better. You know, you're going to cultivate confidence, the byproduct of which is results, right? So there's a lot of different ways to frame it, but what a super objective is designed to do is help you show up as your best you in every situation you face to get better results. And it's unique to every person, because a super objective, essentially, when you dig in and do the work around it, is essentially your values and your strengths married into an actionable phrase that says, okay, what am I doing? You know, what's the impact I want to have in this situation? Did I have it or did I not? You need to be able to say yes or no, so you can course correct if you don't. And that way, the more you do that, the more you develop the muscle memory to be able to be who you are powerfully without focusing on, am I going to fail? What do they think of me? Yada, yada, yada.
And it is, if I'm tracking with you right, it becomes a bit of a touchstone where whenever you are uncertain, like what do I do in this situation? How do I show up in this situation?
Yeah.
If you think back to your super objective and ask the question, well, how do I achieve that in this?
For sure.
In
Exactly.
It's a whole lot better than how do I not make a fool of myself, or how do I
exactly, because what happens is when you're focused on, well, and I think so. I think of our results are a byproduct of the impact that we have, right? So when we're focused on the results, when we're focused on please like me, you know, I want to hit my numbers, I want to prove myself, all of these different things. It's human nature to take the fastest path from point A to point B, right? And so we don't necessarily do the things that are going to be in alignment with our values. We will often sacrifice the things that we care about the most, or and we're not necessarily leveraging our strengths. We're trying to be someone we're not often. So if you're really clear on your super objective, it allows you to do the hard things, to overcome the hard obstacles, while at the same time being yourself powerfully. And I think that's really hard to do in the workplace.
Well, and one of the concepts from your book is, instead of learning to not be afraid, learn instead to recognize your fear and act in spite of your fear, move forward in spite of your fear.
Well, what happens then, Dan, what's so exciting is your fear, all of these physical sensations that we get when we're afraid, like even, even your heart beating faster, or your breathing getting more shallow, or your muscles getting tense. When you say your fear, Well, it's how do you know you're afraid? Well, there's something going on in your
Yeah.
body that is giving you the signal that I'm afraid. What's awesome though is that once you can name it, you can do something about it. So if you can say, "Oh wow, my heart's really beating fast," it becomes a red flag for action, because most of the time, and if not all of the time, I would say almost all the time, when we're feeling afraid, our focus of attention is on ourselves. What's going to happen to
Absolutely.
me? Will they like me? Will I
Mhm.
fail? How do I prove it's here, right? But if you have a red flag for action, which now your body sensations become a red flag for action, it goes, oh, where's my focus? My focus is on me.
Mhm.
Now, how do I shift my focus? All right, Dan, what's the impact I'm going to have on you right now? And that will take me off the hot seat, right? So now I can't focus on both. Am I going to survive? And what's the impact I really want to have on
Yeah.
you right now? And what am I going to do to ensure I have that impact to the best of my ability? You can't think about both things at the same time. So it circumvents your amygdala. It circumvents your fight, freeze, or flee mode, so you can show up powerfully.
And I can see the connection back to acting, because they're based on what you described. If I don't connect deeply with the character, I'm going to be focused on memorizing my lines,
Yeah.
doing the job right, and not making a fool of myself. Whereas if I get in touch with the character's motivations, I kind of lose myself in the character.
Exactly.
I may get the lines wrong, but I get the character right.
Yeah.
And that's what most people react to.
And what people pick up is honest connection.
Yeah.
It's the honesty in your actions that they're picking up, instead of trying to pretend, oh, I'm mad, I'm sad. It becomes an honest extension of who you are.
So in the book, you talk about uncovering your barriers to brave.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that. What do you mean by that?
Well, so I think it's so interesting, because I think vulnerability is one of our greatest opportunities and our biggest barriers to brave. And I truly believe in that. And here's the thing, let me just back up just a second, Dan. I don't look at the world in the way that most of us in the learning and development space look at the world, as if you couldn't tell already. But I don't look at it as, people say, well, do you teach leadership? Yes, I teach leadership. Check that box. Do you teach influence? Yes, I teach influence. Check that box. Check presence. I check that box. Check, presentation skills. Yes, we can check that box. But I don't look at them as different things.
Right.
I look at them as all one thing. It really is all about connection. You're either connecting or you're not. And if you don't connect, people aren't going to want to follow you as a leader. If you don't connect, you can't bring influence. If you don't connect, you don't have presence. And if you don't connect when you're presenting, you might as well be talking to yourself and just send them the PowerPoint deck, because it truly is all about connection.
Well, and if you're presenting and you haven't asked and answered the question, what do I want them to get out of this? What's my super objective for this 45 minutes?
Yeah.
Beyond the tactical, what's my super objective for this 45 minutes? If you haven't clarified that, it's not that you'll be lost. You'll probably do it all right, but it's not going to sing.
Well, but you're focused on your own agenda.
Yeah.
That's the thing. And focusing on having an impact on someone or something outside yourself, which is what the super objective is designed to do, it forces you to put empathy into action. It forces you to pay attention to, what is it you need from me? Right? And am I having the impact I want to have? And the definition of authenticity, I think, that is the most powerful one, I borrow from Bill George, who I'm sure you know who Bill George is, but for those of you who are listening, if you don't know who Bill George is, Bill George used to be the CEO for Medtronic, and he's written a book called Authentic Leadership. So we'll let Mr. George be the guru of that. And he's also written a book with one of his students called True North, and he's on the faculty for the Harvard Business School of Management. Now he's one of the I think on their board, but his definition of authenticity, I think, is really powerful from a leadership and influence perspective, because so often when we think about authenticity, we lose, well, what does that really mean? Because you see, all over social media, be yourself, who cares what anyone else thinks? But from a leadership and authenticity and influence perspective, that definition doesn't cut it. So the way Bill defines it is, are you genuine, worthy of trust, reliance, and belief? Which is beautiful, but it's so much more complicated in action than it is in our heads. And the way we, it sounds really lovely, but the big question that makes this so actionable and so powerful is, who gets to decide?
And what version of the authentic you is the right version for this moment, this situation? I'm gonna test your literary knowledge, because I can't remember. Someone said, or the phrase, "I am multitudes."
Oh,
is that Walt
Oh,
Whitman?
yes. And no, I won't be able to tell you because my brain went, yes, I am multitudes.
But the essence of that is, I am many things. So I can be authentic with my 26-year-old son and show up in a way very different to the authentic me who shows up for a business presentation, or who shows up for others.
If you don't, they won't experience you as authentic. It's authentic from the eyes of the beholder. And, people don't get that. I mean, you can think you're authentic all day long. That's great. That's not going to help you lead or influence.
Yeah. And also, I've seen so many times the word authenticity used as a crutch or an explanation for bad behavior.
Yeah,
hey,
it's an excuse.
I'm just being me. It's just my way. The most common. I just tell it the way it is, as an excuse for having said something overly harsh, or observed something in a way that really wasn't very, very productive. Now, you use the phrase in the book, tap into, I'm going to have to go to my notes because I wrote this down. Tap into the want of the people you lead to get the results that you need.
Yeah.
Tell us a little more about that.
So if you look at the difference between influence and force and coercion and obligation and compliance, there's like two little buckets. There's the force, coercion, obligation, compliance bucket, right? And then there's the influence bucket. And if you look at the difference between those two buckets, it's really choice, right? They get to choose. And I think of choice as want. I want this. I want to be here. I want to listen. I want to give you everything I've got. I'm in this with you. Right. And it goes both up and down the ladder. So it can be, from someone leading someone else, or it could be a leader saying, I want to champion you. I want to believe in you. I want to give you opportunities. I want to listen to you. I want to consider your perspective, so it can go up and down the ladder. Right. And being able to connect to the want. And when you think of want, Dan, want is not an intellectual exercise. Want comes from the heart, and corporate America really has a hard time grappling with this whole heart thing, but it's true. And if you can't connect to their want, you can't fake want, and want, I want to be in this. We can command a lot of things, but you cannot command want. Want is up to each individual to give of their own free will. And the reason organizations hate that is it's really hard to scale, but this is what's real. We're not, this isn't the industrial age. We're not widgets. We're not robots that are going, these are human beings that every person has a different set of wants, a different set of needs, what their history and experiences are. And, are you going to be able to know that all the time? No, but the power that you have to truly lead and influence them is your commitment to caring about what they need from you, what they want, what they need from you to experience you as genuine, as worthy of their trust, as someone they can rely on and believe in.
And in the new edition of your book, you really emphasize that there's sort of an old school leadership playbook, that some of which is still valid, but a lot of it lands flat today, because what you're talking about is one-to-one leadership, whether you're leading 3 people or 30,000 or 300,000 people. And I had someone say to me, well, if I'm a CEO of 30,000 people. I can't lead one-to-one every single one of them, but you can. You can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Exactly. And I don't necessarily have to lay out, well, here's how you do it. Here, step 1, step 2, step 3. I just know from an intent standpoint, you actually are every all hands meeting that you speak at, you're actually delivering. If there are 3,000 people, you're actually delivering 3,000 speeches. It's
That's
being
right.
heard in 3,000 different ways.
That's
And I know
exactly right.
And there is a bit of theater to leadership, and putting on the show that's going to resonate with 3,000 people in individual ways. Yes, that's a big responsibility. It's a big job, but that's the job.
But the thing is, Dan, when you're clear about your super objective, it doesn't feel as hard. Right? Because so let me explain it this way. So when I teach, I have my curriculum. This is what I'm going to teach. This is the content of what I'm going to teach, right? And I've got a responsibility to deliver this content in a way that they understand it. But the content is really just a vehicle for me to have the impact that I'm there to have. So for me, when I'm teaching, I look at my job as to achieve my super objective, to connect this person to the best of who they are, and that person to the best of who they are, and that person to the best of who they are. The content is our vehicle to get there. And that's the same way for a CEO with every presentation they have to give, with every decision they need to make. The work is our vehicle for impact. And when we forget that, that's when we sacrifice the things that matter the most. Because we forget that we have an impact, and that every impact we have has a ripple effect.
And maybe the challenge, or part of the challenge, is that once you get your head around that, or start to get your head around that, it can feel ominous. It can feel like, oh, that's a huge responsibility. It's a huge job. But it doesn't have to feel that way. But
it's also a joy. It takes it from being this, I have to do this, to I get to do this. Because if your super objective is tied into your values and your strengths, you are getting to live who you are out loud. Right? And who doesn't want to do that? I mean, we all want to be seen for who we truly are. And that is as true for people in the C-suite as it is for frontline managers, as it is for individual contributors. And to think otherwise is crazy, because we're humans.
So you, like me, we're people of a certain age where we saw the world pre-pandemic, and we see the world post-pandemic. And we were enough in the world of leadership development pre-pandemic where I think we see the transition that's occurring, the evolution that's occurring. I want to say primarily in younger people, but I don't think it is just younger people. I think when we talk about the characteristics of Gen X or Gen Z, I see a lot of boomers who are adopting many of these same characteristics. When you hear people talking more about work-life balance, more about wanting to be seen in the workplace, more about wanting to be their contributions to be acknowledged.
But don't you think it's the millennials and the Gen Z that has given the boomers and Gen X permission to look at it in a different way?
Absolutely. They
on our own, I'm not sure we would have gone there. Because that's not what we learned, right?
I would have never
do what has been modeled for them.
I would have never said to my boss, I need a mental health day. Would never have.
Yeah.
But I just now in today's world, I just said to my direct report supervisor, I said to her, I'm not coming to this company event because the music is loud, it goes long. It's really designed for younger people who want to drink and connect, and there's a whole vibe to it. It just isn't me.
Yeah.
And so I'm just not going to show up. I don't contribute, and I don't get anything out of it.
Yeah.
And because I was worried about not being a quote team player, not being part of the culture, and it was fine. And even if it had not been fine, it's still okay. It was me setting a boundary for me, which I would not have done.
But and what's so great about that, Dan, is then it also allows you to creatively think, well, what can I do to help to connect with people in a way that feels good to me?
Yeah.
So, it allows us all to be more creative and to have all sorts of different kinds of experiences, because we are not a one size fit all. People
Exactly.
aren't. People are not one size fit all.
So then, as you think about the world that has evolved and changed, um, someone brought this up a few weeks ago. He said I used to be able to focus on my company culture, and I realize now I almost felt like everyone was in the bubble of my company culture, and I had control over that. You come to work, we create a culture here, we're very productive, we're happy, we're connected, etc. And he said, it seems to me that today the culture outside of the culture I can't ignore anymore. It's like the culture outside of the company culture is impinging on my culture. So employees come to work, they've been impacted by social media, by information overwhelm, by misinformation overwhelm, by the world at large. They've been impacted, and I can't ignore that anymore. He said, I don't know what to do about it exactly, but I can't ignore that has an effect on how people show up in the workplace today.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that prompt any thoughts?
No, I think it would be foolish to ignore it, because I don't know if you've ever read Dan and Chip Heath's book Switch. But they have this awesome metaphor in their book Switch, where they compare our emotions with a 3-ton elephant, and they compare our logic to the little elephant rider guy sitting on top. And when the elephant and the rider both want to go in the same direction, everything's great. But when the elephant and the rider want to go in different directions, who's going to win? It's going to be the elephant all day long,
Absolutely.
right? But what do? We don't want to deal with the elephant, because the elephant makes a big mess and it's inconvenient and all of these things. But if you ignore the elephant, you're ignoring it at your peril.
So when you think about the world today and the world of work today, and leadership strategies, techniques, lessons, whatever you want to call it, what do a lot of leadership gurus maybe not get quite as right as they think they get? I'm I read a lot. I'm a fan of a lot of leadership speakers.
You know what I think for me, Dan, and I this has changed a little bit for me over the years. But I think pre-pandemic, and I'm just now starting to make this shift for myself. So as I speak out loud, I'm still working on this. But I think particularly pre-pandemic, all of us in the leadership space, we had our own work, and we were, working in our own little corners of the world, trying to make a difference. And it felt kind of fruitless, because, I'm working hard, but we're not working together on this. And I really think we need to, instead of focusing on how do we build Kimberly's brand, how do we build Dan's brand, how do we build, like putting people on pedestals and all this different thing. But I think we need to look at how do we elevate the leadership conversation together, because if we don't start shifting the way we approach it, we're not going to get create great change. And I remember as a child of the 80s, I remember back when, remember they did that big concert. I'm trying to remember the name of the concert, to raise money for Ethiopia back in the 80s. I can't remember the name of it. It'll come to me. You remember?
I remember what you're speaking of, and the name is eluding me.
It's just escaping me. Anyway, it'll come to me while I'm talking about it, I'm sure. But there was a famine going on in Ethiopia in the 80s. Nobody could get the world to pay attention to what was happening over there. And it was really, really tragic. And so what happened is all these bands came together, and it was all the big musicians of the day. So Sting and Madonna and Phil Collins and what?
Live Aid.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Ding, ding, ding. So Live Aid and Freddie Mercury and all of the big ones came together to put on this concert to raise money and mostly awareness for Ethiopia.
Yeah.
And there was not a single band that was, this is the Madonna concert, this is the Phil Collins concert. No, it was, this is Live Aid, and we're here together to elevate a conversation that needs to be elevated so people pay attention. And I think really, if we don't find a way in our field to bring people together in a bigger way, to elevate our voices, we're going to make, a little difference here and a little difference there and a little difference there, but we're not going to see the change on the global stage that I think we all want to see.
How is that going to happen when there are so many examples of, pardon my French, shitty leadership surrounding us today? There are, there was a time, you were a child of the 80s, I was a child of the late 70s, and there was a time when we could at least point to a few world leaders where we said, most of us trust that person. Most of us align with that person, whether it was Nelson Mandela or a John F. Kennedy or whoever it might be. I hate to even mention names now because today's world.
Yeah, no, because it becomes so divisive.
Oh, absolutely. You can't mention a single name without, 30% pro, 30% con, and 40% just afraid to even say the name.
We just don't.
In this world, how do you help younger people, especially, become better leaders when they don't have a lot of great examples surrounding them of
well, and this is why I think emerging leaders are our future. I really, truly believe this, because they are at a precipice of a new era. They don't have a lot of great role models. Right. And they are the role models for tomorrow. And if we can champion them, if we can elevate their voices, if we can help them explore new ways to learn and lead, then tomorrow will look different than it does today. But I don't think it's going to come from people our age, Dan. I don't think that big change is going to come. I think we have an opportunity to help elevate the voices for tomorrow and equip them with some tools, because there aren't a lot of great role models out there. And to be fair, the leaders in executive roles right now learn to lead in a very different era. It really was, do what I tell you to do. That's your job, is a very clear, defined 9 to 5. You graduate from college, you get this kind of unspoken promise that you're going to, of job security, and all of that is gone. All of that is gone. And so we have to learn to lead in a different way. And I don't think it's going to come from the boomers and Gen Z or Gen X. What generation am I? Gen X. I think it's going to come from the millennials and Gen Z. It's our job to be able to equip them, to help them make that transition.
I recently discovered I am Generation Jones. What
is that?
That is a subset of the boomer generation. It's a very specific, I forget the exact years, but it's like a 4-year period toward the end of the boomers. And the research I read did a nice case study of, they made a good case that there are some distinct motivators and distinct sensitivities to that particular group. So,
interesting. And you're Gen what?
Gen Jones, Generation Jones, Jones. And
I'm writing this down because I need to look at Gen Jones. Okay.
So a lot of leadership books, particularly pre-pandemic leadership books, emphasize strategy, metrics, accountability, structure. Yep. It's very, very mechanical, very mechanistic.
Because we love to be able to measure it. We want to put a number, put it on a spreadsheet.
the workforce of 2,000 human units shows up, and the human marketing units, they do marketing, and the human sales units, they do sales, and basically you have good soldiers showing up. And as long as you have your structure right and your accountabilities right and your strategy right, bam, 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 life is good. And you clearly have a different take. Not dismissing the importance of strategy or metrics or accountability, all of that. But I think you highlight some things that are probably more important and also lead to a much better strategy. If you are more
For sure.
informed,
For
you're
sure.
going to, because
But it doesn't allow you to lead with the blinders on, where you're only focused on a number. It requires more of you. It requires more of you, and the byproduct of that is you get so much more back. Your results are so much better. Your culture is so much better. Your retention is so much better. You know, I mean, all of the things that people complain about. Millennials and Gen Z not staying where they are, but we haven't given them reason to, you know?
Absolutely. And if you are being formed in today's world, and this is what you're growing up with, this is what you're learning, this is the reality that you've been exposed to. You and I, at least, have decades of I don't know, depth learning. When something bad happens, I can view it through 30 years or more of experience.
Right.
Whereas, and I'll use my 26-year-old son as an example. Take the Israeli occupation of Gaza, and then all of the challenges that were happening with the Palestinians and starvation. And I was struggling at first, because whenever that would come up in conversation, my son dialed up a lot. I mean, very angry and very frustrated and very whatever. And I couldn't understand where that was coming from. I just wanted to have sort of a intellectual conversation about it. And I feel for the Palestinians. I feel for all of the folks in that challenging situation. But what I came to realize is I view that through my 30-year prism of experience, and I realize that's a really bad thing. It's a really awful thing, amongst lots of other bad things and awful things that I've kind of insulated myself from. My son, on the other hand, is on social media every day, seeing videos of starving children every day, seeing videos of kids crushed by tanks every day, seeing videos, and that is his formative experience.
Yeah.
If he wasn't intense about it, I should be worried. If he wasn't, I should think, what are you psychotic, where you don't actually care deeply about this? And so the more we can step into the shoes of whichever generation, whichever people that we're working with,
exactly,
we're much more likely to understand where the differences lie in terms of how we react to things.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I talk to a lot of somewhat older leaders. Let's say, well, let's just call it. I talk to a lot of old white guy leaders like myself. They think they're comfortable with me because I'm an old white guy. So, but whenever we start to talk about generations, whenever we start to talk about the new world, they come across as grandpas on the porch with the cane, shaking their sticks at, if only they could do this, if only they could do this. And I had a guy say, look, life was tough when I was growing up too. Life has always been tough. And the thing to do is just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and stop being a snowflake and just make it happen. And then he followed up with, and what I told my recruiting team is, we're just going to hire winners. We're only going to hire winners. We're gonna screen out all of these snowflakes. God bless him. I hope it works out for him. But my guess is his recruiting team is going to struggle to find, quote, only winners.
It depends on how he's the narrow way he's defining winners.
And I think because he maybe has 5 years left in his career arc, in his mind he's thinking, I don't want to put in this energy to evolve, to change. This has worked for me for 40 years. I can squeeze out another 4 years this way and possibly make it work. And I know that doesn't speak for everyone. I know that doesn't speak to everyone.
No, but I do think it's human nature to be afraid of becoming irrelevant. And I think we're seeing some desperation and desperate behavior from people who are clawing to hold on to relevance. And
your book mentions you have a big emphasis on influence, like the human influence. And as you say that, I'm kind of connecting those dots and thinking, yeah, I think part of his pain, he would never describe it this way, because he would say, I don't have any pain, but his
because he's
pain
not a snowflake.
is,
He doesn't feel.
right. But his influence is drifting away, is fading away. He is not as relevant, even within his own organization where he's at a
Right.
senior leadership level. He's feeling the drift, and
Yeah.
people aren't coming to him the way they used to.
Right.
They aren't bowing down to him the way they used to. I imagine they're not.
Well, and I would imagine, Dan, that his feedback, his suggestions, whatever he would tell them, doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work with their people. And so he's saying, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. And those strategies, they're old strategies. That's from the old playbook. They don't work in today's workforce.
Now, what happens with this particular person is he's in a bit of a bubble, because what people don't do with him is say, that's not going to work anymore. Instead, what he gets is smiles and nods and
Sure.
hey, thank you very much.
Right.
Appreciate
Right.
that guidance. And then they go away and they have the real conversations, and they figure things out on their own. And so
but you look at, in today's workforce, so you've got someone who's not telling you the truth, right? They're just smiling and nodding,
Right.
whatever you say. Yeah, whatever you say. And the people that really want to do something different, they're probably not going to stick around, because why would they? So, people who really trust themselves and have a wealth of experience and knowledge and want to do something different, they're going to go either create their own opportunities or go someplace else. So then you've got an organization of people that all that's left are the head nodders and the people who are only going to do what they have to do to stay off the radar. Yep. And you can't be competitive as an organization in today's world that way. So, he may think he wants quote unquote winners, but the way he's defining winners is head nodders, and that's not going to get him what he needs to get.
I'm laughing at myself now, because I think he's probably going to end up listening to this.
Oh,
and
hi. Good luck.
It will probably be the information that he needs to hear. So that's a good thing. I will say to you listening to this, I probably should have been braver. Because I was thinking this, I probably should have said the words that just came out of your mouth, Kimberly. I probably should have said something like that in that moment. But instead, in my own kind way, what I thought was kind, I nodded, I smiled. I didn't give him authenticity.
But you also didn't have a different focus of attention, Dan.
Yeah.
My suspicion is in the conversation, if he's your client, you want to maintain the relationship. You don't. So the thing is what I've learned is I can say some really tough things if I'm very clear about my intention. I'm saying this because I want to connect you to the best of who you are. Now, he would probably think I'm a snowflake for even saying that. And I wouldn't probably say those words out loud. But
sure.
That's my focus of attention, right? My obstacle that I have to work against. And here's the deal. Presence doesn't happen in the absence of obstacles. Presence happens when we're so focused on having the impact that we want to have, even in the face of the obstacles in front of us. Right? Because people go, oh, right. Wow, he really is who he says he is. Mm-hmm. So if I say what I stand for, and I'm telling this as much to myself as I am to the world, I stand for connecting people to the best of who they are. Now, if I don't do that, I can't hide from myself. I know that I'm not doing that. And I believe that confidence comes from knowing that you can count on yourself. So what you're doing is just eroding your own self-belief in that. In that way. But I find that I can say some really hard things in a very caring way if I'm clear on the impact I want to have. Now, if I'm not clear on the impact I want to have, I'm also in reaction and survival mode. I
Sure.
just want it to be as smooth and not be uncomfortable, and because I'm human too. But if I go in with that kind of clarity of focus, it's amazing what you can say in a way that people feel cared about. And the truth is if we're delivering hard news and they can't hear us, we're talking to ourselves. So our job, I mean, that's the heavy lifting of this stuff, is it's not going to make your life easier. It's just going to make you better.
Well,
It's going to force your own feet to the fire.
You talk about how hard it is, and leadership as a responsibility is hard. It's no longer authority or position or perks. It is hard, and it's hard figuring it out, like one-on-one, individual by individual, situation by situation. And I think that's part of why we're seeing a lot of younger people who don't want leadership positions, who just
right. And we're going to be I worked with a team day before yesterday that was really struggling, really struggling. And they're dealing with a situation that a lot of teams are dealing with nowadays, and that is, half of them are in one location and half are another location, and maybe one or two in different locations, and they're only together as a team once a year. And there have been big changes in the organization about way bonuses, people are compensated for their bonuses. So it went from everyone gets this bonus to now only 25% qualify for this bonus. And the leader of this team was the one that had to communicate this. So this is a group of people, they'd all gotten bonuses, and now only 25%. And so it's a bad policy. I mean, quite frankly, I have zero understanding why a company would put a policy in place that says we can only recognize 25%. Don't you want your whole team to be rock stars? I mean, if they are rock stars, wouldn't you want your whole team to be rock stars? But no. We're going to have a policy in place where only 25% get to have any recognition of. Anyway, so trust had eroded in this team, and this is a employee relations compliance team. So their world is they have the most thankless job of every organization in the organization. No one says, "Yay, compliance team!" Right? Nobody says that. But yet, an organization that doesn't have a strong ER and compliance team can't succeed. And so, it's they're a critical role, but it's a thankless role. And all of this organizational stuff was happening. And I have to tell you, at the end of the day, when this team was together and they got permission to dig into who they are as a leader, and they got to see each other take down the masks and see what each person particularly cares about, why they care about what they care about, and understand each other in that way. This team that in the morning, I was really kind of worried, to be honest. It was very fractured. I was like, not sure how this is going to go. Good luck, me. But by the end, they were crying and hugging and grateful and hopeful. And so it doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take a lot, but we have to give people permission to be human. We have to give them a way to feel a sense of belonging, to give them permission to care about what they care about and feel seen. And those are not big things. And when you do that, it's amazing how people will come to the table.
And those are things that it's a shame that it took a live event at the end of a year. And I get the specialness of that dynamic. When you bring everyone together, you can make things happen that are much harder to make them happen in a virtual environment. But hopefully they can take away the magic that you created, and now very intentionally in their virtual world, keep that going? Because I do
Yes.
believe
How
one
do
of
you
the
keep this sticky? How do you keep it alive for yourself?
yes,
But the thing is, I think in the past, they've just been in survival mode as a team, right? And when they get together as a team, they're going over new operations things and new this and new regulations, and that's not going to bring anybody together.
no, not
So
at
we've
all.
got to carve off time for the humans to come together as humans.
And if you are a leader and you have a weekly one-on-one with each of your employees, although and I think it's important in a virtual world to be very intentional about your connection time with your employees.
Yeah.
Whenever I talk to a leader who has 8 or 10 direct reports, and I ask him, so how frequently do you meet with them one-on-one? The most common answer is every 2 weeks. And then I'll ask, so when was the last time you met with them? Well, it was about a month ago. So what happens to that? So number one, every 2 weeks is not enough. If in a virtual world, you have to connect with people. You have to
Yeah.
pull them in. You have to be intentional.
Yeah.
You're super objective in your virtual connections. Part of it has to be, I'm going to draw out the human from this person, because by sharing the human with me, I totally know for certain you can create absolutely intimate human relationships
Yeah.
in pure virtual worlds. But it's a set of leadership skills that I think we broadly speaking haven't helped leaders learn. Instead, what we've
No,
just
no,
done
no,
is
no. And to be honest, the COVID ignited this virtual world that we're all in now, and now in this hybrid world. But it's not like nobody knew how to lead in those
no, we gave,
environments.
we,
That
we
was
gave them
all that's
webcams.
thrust upon the whole world.
Here's your webcam, here's your microphone,
Right,
and
right. Now go.
go. So,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. But it is exactly what you're saying, Dan. Is that's in that intentionality, and it's not just you as the leader being clear on what's the impact you want to have, but being really curious about what drives them. They do what they do for the sake of what beyond the paycheck. Because nobody gives their best for a number, for a paycheck, because they have to. They give their best because they want to. How do you help them connect to their want? Why do they care about what they're doing? Why do they care? If you can help them do that, you won't have to worry about motivating them.
I have one client who hired us to assess their overall employee engagement and identify what their needs were to drive employee engagement, because they, like a lot of organizations, had spent 20 years trying to boost employee engagement, and they were measuring it every year, and it was just getting worse and worse and worse year by year, no matter what they spent, no matter what they did. And so I asked if there were any anomalies. Like their primary metric for employee engagement was turnover. And so they were noticing that their turnover was employees were leaving sooner and leaving more frequently.
Yeah.
And so I asked if there were any anomalies, any bright spots. They identified a couple of leaders as bright spots, and so I went right to those folks, and
Right.
I just asked them, like, what do you do? How do you lead? And in every case, these were the leaders, because everybody was in a virtual environment, so
Yeah.
same technology, same everything, but these were the leaders who were meeting every week. These were the leaders, when they did meet, it wasn't just about your OKRs or
Yeah.
your KPIs.
Right.
A
Exactly.
big part of it was, how are you? How are you?
Yeah.
And one of the guys said, I am disciplined. I spend half the time about them. We might have a 45-minute meeting. Half the time is going to be about them and me as humans, and then we'll get to the stuff. We'll get to the and he said, in my quarterly review meetings, I always ask the question, how am I doing for you?
Yeah.
And he said, I've recommended this to all my colleagues. Nobody wants to do it. Everyone's afraid of what the answers might be. And he said, frankly, when I first started asking the question, people weren't necessarily comfortable telling me,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
They would just say, oh, you're doing fine. You're great. You're fantastic.
Yeah.
But you ask it enough, and you develop a relationship with them where they're willing to say those areas where you might show up differently, that could be better for them, or things that could be done differently. But what was so clear was that those few bright spots were managing and leading in a different way, a distinctly different way that was designed for the virtual environment.
Yeah.
And all of them also said, I've been telling people what they should be doing. There was no secret to any of it. It's that other leaders just didn't want because it takes energy, it takes time,
It does. It does.
it takes more. I think it is harder. It is harder to lead virtually than it
For
is
sure.
to lead. And
For
so
sure.
that hardness of it, that energy that it requires, instead it's easier for a leader to say, we just need to bring everyone back to the office. Like, for our culture, we need to bring everyone back to the office for our culture. We need to bring everyone back to the office to create a team spirit, to create a connection with each other. The last client I had that did a full return to the office,
Oh,
they were shocked that they brought everyone back to the office, and now their teams, many of them, have their regular meetings still on Teams.
yeah.
They sit in their offices and they all log in and meet on
Yeah.
Teams. And
Yeah.
it's not that they don't want to see each other; it's that it's more efficient for them. They like that, and they'll still see each other in the break room. They'll still go out for coffee. They'll still go out for lunch. They'll still do those things. But it's so much easier to start a meeting on my screen. I stay engaged. I have my meeting, and then I close down and I move on to the next thing.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, I went on a little rant there. Didn't mean to.
No, but I think the return to office thing is a real pain point for a lot of people right now. And
let's look at you and I. A week ago, we did not know each other existed on the planet.
Right.
And then
it's really a shame, Dan. It
is. I will agree. And then I read a LinkedIn post that grabbed my attention. We reach out, we connect very quickly without any prep at all, without any prep.
Yeah.
We have this conversation.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had like 15 minutes before this call, but I already feel like I know Kimberly Davis. I like Kimberly Davis. I want to spend more time with Kimberly Davis.
I felt that before we even started recording.
Yeah.
This guy's my people.
without a doubt. And so it is a shame that you are in San Diego, although beautiful San Diego, and I'm in the middle of North Dakota. You hear the phrase "middle of nowhere." I believe I'm literally in the middle of nowhere. I love it for a lot of reasons, but it ain't San Diego, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, I'll send you some sunshine. How about that?
So, Kimberly, I want to be respectful of your time, and I'm sure we will have many conversations like this in the future. Any last things you would like to share with people in terms of, I guess, whatever thoughts you might want to share? I will make sure in the show notes we include links to your website, links to your book on Amazon. We'll include all the things, so people will there'll be no mystery in terms of how to get a hold of Kimberly Davis if someone wants to do that.
Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. Well, one of the things I'm most excited about is, so I started seeing back a million years ago when I started this work around using the super objective in a business sense, the power that it can have in terms of helping people be who they are powerfully and constructively and be able to get better results as a byproduct. It allows you to do the hard things in a way that it's like we were saying earlier. We talk about getting in the arena, but nobody talks about how. Like, just do it. You got to get in the arena. Okay, great. How do I do that? So my dream for more than 17 years now was to find a way to democratize the super objective, because I think everybody should know their super objective. I think everybody should be able to have clarity around, this is what drives me as a person. And when I can kind of geek out about this, but I believe that that's how we change the world. One person, one situation, one impact at a time. And collectively, that's how we can create great change. Because otherwise I get really, worried and depressed about the state of things. And if we can look at, well, okay, there's a lot outside of our control, but what is within our realm of control? How do we do that? And it gives us a sense of agency that we often don't feel in this whirlwind of a world right now. And so for years, the technology just wasn't there. But this past year, my husband, Tim, and Tim is an engineer and he's a technology guy and an innovation guy and strategy guy. And he partnered with me to build a super objective tool. And we're committed to keeping it free. So if anyone has an internet connection, we wanted to democratize the super objective. And so if people go to nowbebrave.com, you can go through the tool and uncover your own super objective. Now, it's still in soft launch. It's not perfect. We're still dialing it in and making it better. But it's pretty consistently delivering. If you do the work in the tool, so this is not like the your name your spirit animal kind of tool that takes 5 minutes. This takes probably between 20 and 35, 40 minutes to do if you do it right. But if you invest yourself in it, you will know your super objective, and it will help you show up more powerfully in your life. So nowbebrave.com, anyone can know their super objective. You don't have to have me in the classroom or anything else. You can do the work yourself.
That is fantastic, and I'll make sure we include all of those details. So, Kimberly Davis, I was all set to tell a joke. I was going to call you Kimothy. Kimberly.
Yeah. We get Timberly quite a bit.
Yeah. But really, only like a narrow sliver of people would now get the office reference to that joke. So then I decided not to tell it, but then I just told it because I lacked control. Thank you very much. This is fantastic. We'll do this again.
This has been an absolute joy, Dan. I think we could probably hijack the airwaves for hours if we wanted to.